For the healthcare entrepreneurs that we have that are just about to start their own big idea, do you recall in your journey when you knew or you proved to yourself that you had something of value, that you had something interesting to work on? And, just some of that decision making criteria where you said, okay, this is the one, it's time to lock in and start.
Yeah, it's in a way it's a tough question. I think
Hmm.
one thing I'd say is, a lot of folks within founding a company and going through, especially in this kind of slow build that I've done it with, and sometimes you have to with healthcare. It's so complex, you can't just build something and have it scale. There's a few that have done that, but it depends on where you're at. I'd say in my case, pretty early on, before we even put pen to paper on the first MVP, I did a lot of customer discovery. I met with 20, 30 different practices, surveyed 200 providers, met with payers and EHRs, and started mapping all that together. And I think what's carried the day for me throughout the entire ups and downs of this journey is early on, I knew we were working on the right problem, we were just rowing in a direction where things had to be rowed. So I'll give you a quick example. Early on, well pre-pandemic, like 2015, 2016, when I was just chatting with people were like, that's kind of neat with automation, but it's healthcare and these are old processes. Is anyone going to adopt automation? And what is AI? They thought it was like a robot, and all that, right? And now through this process, I'd say just early pandemic, there was some understanding automation was going to hit. And through the pandemic, it's like now every revenue cycle department is looking for automation. They know the difference between machine learning and natural language processing, and right? So but for me, I guess I had a window that that's going to happen and we're working on a big problem. And so even if there are some pains in adjusting exactly what our solution was going to be, I never wavered in knowing that we were working on something that mattered and kind of moving in the right direction. So that was the foundation of the whole thing. And then kind of more specifically with our platform, I'd say this is not going to be super specific, but I think there's this time you want to have a learning mindset. Generally speaking, it's accepted with software. You got to meet with customers, you got to learn customers, you got to document all that kind of stuff, and that's great. But that can also be really tiring. It can really bog you down because early on, inevitably, your customers know way more about their experience in the space than you do, and you run into a lot of I think I figured it out, and then someone shoots you down. And I think figured it out, and so. You keep this learning mindset. For me, every call, you got to always keep learning. But there is this tipping point where a larger percentage of your customer calls becomes you teaching them about the industry, and you kind of see the questions coming before they come, and you're like, wait a minute, and you get obviously more positive response on what you built. And I'd say for me, it was probably only about a year and a half ago where I was like, all right, I've done enough of these customer calls and demos and interactions where 95% of what they're going to say I could tell early in the call, and they're getting value from the call, and then I could just tell their reaction. They looked at our product and that. There's been a lot of thought, and you've done your homework in building that, and that's when you're like, all right, you know what? I think we got something, and it would take a long time for someone to redo that, walk through our shoes to redo it. So I don't know, it's about a year and a half ago. I kind of was like. I had 3 or 4 calls like that one day, and I was like, I guess we got something here,